All right, let's get started. Welcome to ProductTank Stockholm and this very special meetup. It's not only special because we have 4 great speakers today. It's special because also it's World Product Day, which is a day to celebrate product management and as a discipline and the product, our great product community. So today will be over 50 live events going on across the world, all the way from New Zealand to Portland. So be sure to check out World Product Day for all the listings of all the events. So my name is Eric. I'm one of the organizers for ProductTank Stockholm, and I'll be your host / DA for today. And as I said, we have a great panel today. We have Petra from Swedbank. It's going to talk about the security and how the security landscape has changed due to the COVID. We have David from Voi. We'll talk about how to prioritize during this crisis. And we have Francesca from Hemnet that will talk about how they built something incredible in a very short time due to the COVID pandemic. And last but not least, we have Erel from MatHem that has had a really surge in orders coming in. So it's going to be really exciting to hear about. So just some quick housekeeping. There's no sponsors this time, obviously. It's only us. We'll do each speaker will answer some questions. So if you have any questions, just post them on the YouTube and in the comment section, and we'll answer them after each talk. Also, I guess like emergency exits are behind you, and toilets. I guess you know where they are. Otherwise, let's see if Petra is ready here.
Hello.
Hello, Petra.
Hello. Thank
Hello.
you for inviting me. Really happy to be here.
Great. Yeah, thanks for being here. Do you have a screen to share?
Yes, I will share now.
There you have your screen. So, Petra from Swedbank, yeah, the scene is yours.
Thank you. Then I will start. And I'm really happy to be here to talk about something that I really have a passion for. And this is the human factor. And as you mentioned, how this affects now during the increased remote work and us moving to our home environments. First, I will very shortly talk about who I am. Petra Klein is my name. I am CISO, that's Chief Information Security Officer, and Head of Group Information Security in Swedbank. And as a CISO, I am responsible for leading and coordinating security in the group. So that is who I am. I have a long background within the cybersecurity area. I have been working previously for FRA, that's Swedish NSA, as a penetration tester, ethical hacker. So I bring that knowledge with me now as a CISO for Swedbank. So that is a bit short on who I am. If we continue then with the presentation, we will focus on the human factor, and this is where it starts. It is a fact that nearly all cyber attacks will be enabled by human interaction. Cyber criminals are today exploiting human nature, and therefore you as a human being are a target for cyber criminals, and that is really important to have that awareness, especially when moving to the home environment. Cyber warfare today it's digital. It's performed by cyber criminals, and you become a puppet in the game of the cyber criminals. They are making you as a human being to act for them. I mean, perform activities that you not normally would do in your normal work. So this is what I will talk about, a bit of the different techniques they're using. This is important. The war is at the endpoints, the workstations. And what do I mean with that? I mean, we are sitting at the workstations, we are working, we are receiving email, we are surfing, and we are people. So this is where the cybercriminals will strike. They will target you as a human being sitting at your workstation. So it's very important that you are securing your workstation and really understand that this is the focus to start with. Some cyber attacks then towards humans, some examples we have here. Social engineering is the concept of everything. We have phishing, that is someone's trying often by email to get you to do things that you are not intended to do. Wishing, that is phishing by using voice. They're using the same techniques as phishing, or using the voice. Eavesdropping, if you look at the picture here, you can see that we have this cyber criminal with a black cape on, and we have two people sitting on the train, for example. And they're talking about things that they might not think is important for them. But it might be that actually that person is about to do some investments in the company. They might listen to you. So that's important that you're leaving the work behind you when you are leaving, especially also working from home. Close the door when you're working. Don't share the information because it might be useful for someone else. Then I want to go through some signs of phishing to make you aware of that, because this is the most common technique that the cybercriminals are using. You will often get an email where they're trying to make you feel like a level of urgency. It's often urgent, and this is to make you get out of balance. I mean, if you are stressed, you will often make not the best decision. So that is the first signs. The target for the cybercriminals, they want personal information, credit card information, personal ID, and they want you to, in some cases, perform a payment. That is the ultimate target for them, to make you do that. Often they claim it's confidential. Don't share this information with anyone else. And this is to make you feel specially selected. Then you're not allowed to share it, and you should feel like you are the ones that is chosen for this task. Often they do a CC to a lawyer or someone similar, and that is also to put onto this confidentiality, so you shouldn't share this information. The sender is in many cases your CEO, CFO, or someone in a senior position, and this is someone that you are afraid to challenge. You don't very often get an email from these persons, so normally you do as they say. So these are the summarized signs of phishing. Reporting is extremely important. Even that you might not click on this link, someone else in the company might do so. And by reporting to your security department, you might warn others that have received this information. So this is really important to do that. And it happens to anyone. Don't be afraid, even though you have clicked on the link. It's better to do a damage control and stop the attack at your place so it doesn't spread to the other organization. Here I'm showing some examples of phishing, and if you look to the left, the pay friend one, you see that the level of urgency is there. In most cases, you can see spelling errors. That is not the case always, because today they are really good at the local languages, but that can be a first notification that you see spelling errors. So look at those signs. You can also see that domain is actually not from the right domain. It actually says something totally different. So be a bit aware, look at the links, look at them, use the mouse over the link so you can see that is it really from the sender that they claim to be. You can see on the Netflix example, it's actually not from Netflix email address, it's actually someone else that has sent this link to you. And here you have a link to a phishing site. So these are signs that you as a human being will be, they will use these kind of techniques. If we look at the statistics then, they are pretty scary. 90% of the cyber attacks are today a human factor are involved. And as I mentioned, phishing is behind the majority. So that's why it's really important that you are aware of this. There's a lot of undetected cases, and that is because people are, as I mentioned, they are embarrassed that they have done this. They will not share their information. But I think if we talk more and more about it, we will create this awareness that it can happen to anyone, and I mean to report, to warn other people. If we summarize then, how can you as a person protect against? I mean, the first thing that you should think about is that you are a target. And if you are aware about this, you will be more like, not paranoid, but you will think about more signs. You might warn others people as well. And then you will be more secure in your daily work. Also very important, especially now when working from home, that you are up to date, stay up to date with security trainings and guiding principles. If you don't know about them, ask for them. I mean, your company will probably have something there that you can take. Try to always be updated and knowledgeable. And again, always report. That's the most important thing. Anything that is suspicious, look for anomalies, anything that is out of the normal behavior. It's better to report one time too much than not at all. So what can you do then? I mean, to prevent this, it's really important to have a security culture. And for that, most companies, they have a security awareness program where they are training the people. Normally you have this yearly training for all employees, and then you can have small, like nano trainings to continue to repeat the message. Security must be fun and engaging. And why is that? You need to make people think it's fun with security. For example, at Swedbank, we have a lot of these fun events. We had like this fishing, the Swedish fish, where we like have fishing campaigns. So we gave people candy. I mean, you need to make it a bit fun. Otherwise, people might be afraid of it. But at the same time, they need to understand, the people, that security is serious. I mean, that's something that everybody needs to understand, that they are a target for cyber criminals. We're working a lot with security by design. I mean, that we should implement security very early in the phase. And the message we have, I am the group CISO, but I can't do this on my own. I mean, security needs to be each and every employee's responsibility. So that's why we have as a leading example that security is everyone's business. To help this work, I will not go through all the details, but here we have a maturity model that you can use. I mean, non-existent, and the employees, they are not even aware that they are a target for cyber criminals. And then you have a different phase, compliance focused, and you have this yearly training. But if you come, and this can take several years between these steps, so it's important to get started really early to have awareness of behavior change. Then you understand you are a target, you have this more into the DNA of the employees. And the other two, then you're really working with it daily in the DNA as well. And metrics framework, then you can follow up on investments, and you can really see that you are implementing this fully. So what happens now then? You are a target as a human being, and when you are leaving the premises of your secure home office, the cyber criminals will follow you to your home. And this is where it's really important that you have these awareness trainings, that you are aware that the threat is also at your home. I talked about the workstations being the cyber war, and that is how it is. Use multi-factor authentication on your devices to really make sure that you're securing your endpoint and keep them up to date. And also, when you're sitting from home, it might seem a bit strange, but lock your device when you're leaving it, even though it's just your family at home. I mean, it's someone can go into your laptop. You never know. Really important. Be as paranoid as you are at work as you are at home, I would say. And close the door if you have any confidential conversations, if you talk about something that not everyone should hear. So you have that awareness also in your home. At Swedbank, we have a cyber defense center where we have two setups. We have a blue team and we have a red team. So this is how we are working to look at the threats we have towards our employees. We have the blue team defending the bank. I mean, we're looking at potential breaches. Everybody have today like this mindset, you have assumed breach. You assume that you get a breach or maybe a workplace, and then you do the damage control and make sure that you can't get any further, and you build your defense based on that. So they are hunting for cyber criminals. And then at the other time, we have a red team that is separate, who's doing penetration testing. They are trying to simulate cyber attacks. So we have these two capabilities. So, and this we have in-house. We're not just a bank. We also have our own IT company within the bank. And the red team, they're working without, they're not notifying the blue team. So we're also testing the capabilities of the blue team. So this is a bit how we are working with security in Swedbank. So this was very shortly about me. I want to leave some room if we have any questions.
Yeah, if there are great talk, Petra. If there are any questions, just drop them on the live feed on YouTube. And I can start. I'm curious, how's your like workload changed now during the pandemic? Has it been? I imagine it's been a lot more to do, or?
No, actually, we are, as I said, we have this. We have the Swedbank Defense Center, the Cyber Defense Center, that's looking into the threat landscape, and we see that they are following the employees. But we can use the same techniques at the office as from home, since we have the workplaces as a parameter. So we see like they are following the people, but we have pretty much the same threat landscape towards the bank right now, which is really good.
Okay, cool. Have you been surprised? Has anything surprised you with kind of what you needed to adapt it to?
No, I would say if we should look at the positive side of this, we have really pushed the digitalization. I mean, we went from I think we're around 50, 60, 70% working from home in a very short time notice. So Swedbank did that really well. We really changed the way of working and ramped up that capability. So I think I'm really impressed by how our IT organization shifted to remote access.
Oh.
So I'm really, that's positive.
Cool, because that's kind of like the hardest limitation I've heard in the financial sector is like the access to VPN licenses has been the has been the limiting factor. Okay, great. If you have any other questions for Petra, just you can ask them later, and if you're around, you'll answer them then. Thanks for talking, Petra.
Thank you.
And now we have David from Voi here. Let's put you up on screen. Hi, David.
Thank you. Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's a very special day today, and everything seems to be working smoothly. Let's see here if you do you have a screen you want to share?
Yes, I can put it on.
You can put it on.
You
but you're yeah, great. But you're Petra was at the office, but you're not at the office, right?
Nope, I'm working from home almost, I would say. I have my own little office out where I live in Tyresö, so I'm working from that office.
Okay, cool. All right, dealing with unprecedented changes. Very exciting. Floor is yours.
Yes, and don't forget to ask questions in the chat if you want me to answer any questions later on. Not that I expect you'll have any questions after this super clear presentation with no questions to be answered afterwards. Joke aside. Anyway, I want to talk about unprecedented changes. I mean, you all know the changes that are being through and so on. But from a Voi perspective, I want to share a little bit of what happened. I mean, pre-corona, you have the daily work. We have the product strategy, 1-2 years foresight. We're trying to break it down in quarterly OKRs to see, okay, we're going to work with the next coming sprint, the next coming month, and so on. And we have the product teams doing this. I mean, nailing down the roadmaps, figure out what sprint deliverables. You don't really have much changes, except you have the occasional new competitor, you have new legislation, you have maybe new features you want to try out and so on, but there's all sort of planned into your nice and product backlog. But then a small little virus finds the way in from China, and all of a sudden hell breaks loose. It's complete chaos. Like from overnight, basically, all our revenue's gone. We have to assume that all our revenues are gone for foreseeable future. Is it 1 month? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Because Voi being in the sharing scooter business, we're assuming that people are actually out on the street moving around. But when no one is moving around, when countries are in complete lockdown, there will be no moving around. Doesn't matter how great products you have or how incredible new features that users surely would love. It doesn't exist there. So you have this changed in priorities completely from what you thought was happening one day over to the other day, and how you deal with that. The second part that comes into play, and this is more like if you're managing a team, that you will have to figure out, you have a lot of frustrations, you have a lot of concerns. Am I going to keep my job? Am I going to get sick? What about my family? How do I work from home? I feel alone, I feel stressed. All of a sudden, you can't also depend on the velocity of your team. Are they going to deliver anything or not? So you have that kind of balance also of managing your team from a sort of personal perspective, how their daily life works, how are they able to work? And then you have the third one. It's like a lot of us have been laying off people. Voi went through this as well. We laid off a quarter of our workforce. We reduced into furlough where we're supposed to work 2 days a week. And then you have this overarching product strategy in the back of your head anyway. You're supposed to deliver to make sure that when the market comes up, you're competitive. that's not a very easy situation, and probably you've been through this, all of you as well. But like when you're having a team of, like in my case, 6-7 product managers, they have different priorities and roadmaps, and that kind of is gone. What do you do then? This is what I'm hoping to answer. Like one of the things that we would have to do then is like we're going through and back to the basics I would refer to. Looking into what a company want to achieve. What is the corporate vision? Is the corporate vision still the same? Which it probably is. This is a temporary thing. It may be very long, maybe short, but it's still not maybe changing the company's business in at heart. So you still have that company vision. And then you get time now to actually focus on, okay, what do we really need to do? When you have less resources, you don't really have users you can test on, you'll have to go out and figure out, okay, what do we really want to do? At Voi, we're having the vision. I'll come back to that a little bit later. And then we're nailing that down to North Star goals. And given that we're in a sort of refacing those North Star goals, I can't really go in and talk exactly what that is. But part of that is like we're realizing, okay, in order to do those things, there are a few things that we should be focusing on during this time. And that is to make sure the service is impeccable. Like things that we didn't have time to do last year because the market was exploding. Now we have the time to go and do this. Make sure that the core experience is exactly what the user expects. No strange things happening. Like if you're a user taking a scooter, you probably want to take the scooter because I want to go from this location that I am in to the other location, and that should just happen. You're not there to try and figure out which scooter is working or what do I do in the app. Like you only want to do one thing. You want to open up the app, start a scooter ride. You're going to go on the scooter, you come back and you want to stop, and that gets going. This is giving us the time to focus on these kind of basics, so preparing for making sure that we do those kind of things. The other thing we will have to do is also to rethink a little bit of how we're working. Like how do we do user research when there is no physical meetings? Like normally a great thing is get a focus group in, study user behavior, you go by them day by day to understand how their behavior is and how they affect them. You can't do this. You have to find other means of doing it. I'm not a big fan of surveys because surveys you have to sort of interpret the questions. Instead, I really like to do this like user research where you can understand user behavior as well. So we've been trying out different tools, and I'm just going to brag a little bit about one called Panelista, which is a good way of getting more personal and getting more interaction with users. So at least you can enhance your understanding of a feature that you maybe recently launched or that you're planning to launch. So we had to do these kind of things as well, tightening up the roadmap, realizing, okay, what are the things that really, really matters? And strangely to say, to all of you listening, you probably think that, well, that is 101 on product management. But in companies where you grow fast, you'll be surprised how quickly you forget about these things because there's always this next feature that needs to get out. There's always this like great user thing that you have to solve, and then you move on. And you kind of necessarily don't remember the basics. So this is giving us a chance of taking a step back and think through more about, okay, what do we need to do? And going back to the vision, one of the things that we've been saying, and we still say that the Voi vision is cities made for living, free from noise and pollution. A surprise, COVID-19 have given you free from noise and pollution. Like you look at Italy, you look at China, pollution level has been close to zero. This has made countries rethink their strategy for how to build cities. Like we see in Southern Europe, we see in UK now, things are changing in a way, realizing that we can't always go on by cars. We have to find other ways of moving around. It could be remote working. It could be that we need to use scooters. And one recent example is that the UK now has opened up for scooter sharing. From being totally legal in UK, now scooters at least will be allowed to start testing out because they see the advantages of these kind of things. You see public transport operators realizing, all right, people aren't going on buses. How are we then going to move them around? Are we going to put them on scooters or bikes and so on? There's always this sentiments that people should be walking because it's healthier. They should be cycling, taking a bike instead of going on a scooter or a moped or whatever. But you have to understand users and the user needs and the user behavior. Even if it's maybe for the better that they walk, they don't necessarily always have the time. Sometimes it's much more convenient to jump on a scooter and go from A to B. We see this as like actually a turning point in the industry where the cities are realizing that this is something good. We can use this opportunity or this chaos that COVID has created to come out good from it. We can make cities better for living. And this is one of the things that I want to emphasize as well, that we also have the opportunity to when we lick our wounds and trying to recover from these kind of things, we've been tightening up the team, realizing that this kind of chaos also creates opportunities. And in our case, like going back to saying, like, how do we work with the cities? What kind of needs do they have? And how can we let scooters solve their needs? And one thing that I really want to emphasize and finish my talk, and I know, Eric, that I can't speak for 15, 20 minutes, so I'm only going to speak for like 10 minutes or so. But one of the things that we recently came to cross with is BlaBlaRide. So in France, there's this company called BlaBlaCar. They're huge on carpooling, on buses, and a few other things. They have like, I don't know, 70 million users. Very strong brand as well, but they don't have scooter sharing. So they reached out to us, and recently we came to a conclusion that in order to serve like Paris or other cities better, it's really good if Voi and BlaBla teams up, and we created something called BlaBlaRide. They came from the same idea, like realizing that all this transport means they have, they're missing this last mile puzzle. It's like, how do people go for the last mile? Carpooling is not very efficient if you're in a big city like Paris, particularly if the cities want to get rid of cars in the city. Like one of the things that Paris is doing is to turn parking lots into scooter parking lots instead. So you'll have less cars to park. There are driving forces to make sure that cities are becoming free of cars, or at least reducing the cars. You have seen Oslo talking about that the downtown area should be car free as well. So out of these chaoses, you always have opportunities coming out. So even how hard it is to say goodbye to your friends that you've been working with for years, you need to look forward as well and try and figure out, how can I turn this into something that could be good? We're still struggling, I must be honest. I mean, if we're looking at the revenues, it's nowhere near where it was supposed to be in May. May, June, July is our peak season where people are using scooters daily, everywhere, all the time. And we're not really there now, but at least we're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. People are realizing the value of scooters versus before, where it was seen as trash and only for rich kids that didn't have anything else for them. Having said that, I need you to ride safely, and of course you should take a Voi, and I hand back the word to you, Eric.
Thank you, David. Great presentation. Really, really interesting. To kind of like compare and contrast to Swedbank, which in their case is in like a rapid acceleration of the digitalization, and you who are kind of like, you don't have that much legacy yet, but going back to basics and fix, like I have time to fix the core things that you might have put to the side when scaling. Really interesting. We have a question from Emil from Kundo. He asks if you've seen any differences in Voi usage across the markets compared to Sweden. Like, has it been down much more in Paris?
Well, if we're looking at like Germany and France, it was complete lockdowns. There wasn't much usage as well. Instead, what we did, like in Paris, was to enable people who worked in the healthcare. We put scooters out on the street for them to use. So they can just log in and use scooters for free. We didn't charge anything, but it's just more like a public service that we did to make sure that people could commute, even if they didn't want to go on the subways or the buses. But I mean, if you compare year on year, it's a drastic change, of course. It's much, much lower. We're seeing it coming back a little bit now when we're coming back and launching up in different markets like Turku, Helsinki, Oslo, Trondheim. But it's still far from where we were expecting it to be.
Yeah. Another question is like, how do you deal with kind of keeping the morale high? Because I think you have your OKRs, you have your like key results and the metrics and everything, which you followed quarter after quarter. And suddenly I imagine like many of the dashboards are just like straight down. It can be quite demotivating to look at that.
Yes. So March was not a very fun month in the beginning of April, particularly since that's all the time when we're going through the cut downs where we're laying off people and so on. And also not being in the office creates like a different vibe of like, how do you keep people motivated? And you noticed a very clear dip in the beginning of April, middle of April, where people like, why should I even work? I quit, I go home. You felt that thing. So from my management perspective, it was really important for me to make sure I first schedule time with everyone in my team to make sure I have regular conversations with them, but also do that unexpected, just call out to them and call them, get on a video call and just chat a little bit of what's going on and how the morale is, or why don't you get a new coffee machine so at least you get happier. I mean, that kind of like a little bit of pep talking. The other thing that was good from a company perspective is that we could look into like comparing to what our competitors were doing. At least they weren't doing better. So that's sort of keeping us a little bit on the high note. We had one competitor who laid off their people on a Zoom call in 5 minutes and then hang up. We were a little bit more personal in the way we're dealing with layoffs, of course, because it's like people we were working with. We didn't want to lay people off, but like, yeah, shit happens.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I really like the takeaway of like the phoenix rising from the chaos. There, there's also good coming from this whole. But are you seeing are things trending a bit upwards now, or?
Oh yes, it's definitely going upwards. The other thing that happened as well, we launched new scooter models as well, which is another positive change. Like in this kind of thing, we have a new scooter model coming out, and we also see that people like that better. We see better unit economics with it and so on. So that's also giving a positive feeling into the company that, look, we're launching new scooters, people love them. And we're seeing also that people are using it more. So it's getting better. The weather is good. We normally have more rides, and we see that as well now.
Cool. And the questions just keep pouring in. I think we do one more, and then we'll save the rest for later. So have you seen any difference in like behavior now when people are coming back? I mean, are there new user categories or other types of people signing up, or?
We're expecting to see new user categories. We're expecting that to happen. We haven't really seen it so far, but we're tracking what we refer to as new users. And the last couple of weeks, that actually has grown quite heavily compared to a month before. So we see new users are coming in. We're still not really sure if it's new user groups or just sort of the same users coming in, the same type of users coming in. But we know that from like some user research we had, that's a really big difference from people in my age, and I'm really old, I'm 50 plus, versus the 30 or 35-year-old, which is our main target group, on how to get on board and how to start a scooter. It's an eye-opener when we did a focus group of like people in the 45 to 55 years old. Like, what do you mean kick to start a scooter? What should I kick? Should I kick the scooter? I mean, there was a lot of this kind of unexpected behavior that we thought was intuitive, that you get on your scooter, you start kicking on the street to get the scooter rolling, and then the engine will start. For us, naturally, it was working in the industry, but for people who are new to this, it's a completely different behavior. So that's something we're going to have to cater for this summer, is to realizing how do we help new user groups get on board. And they could be that we need different business models. It could be that we need different onboardings, that we may need different partnerships to be able to get these users coming in.
Yeah. Well, really good. Thanks again, David, for the talk, and best of luck in going forward.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, we have Francesca. Let's get you up on stage. Hi, Francesca.
Guys. Hello from telephone from Stockholm. Really glad to be here. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. We have Hemnet, Sweden's one of Sweden's most popular products.
Yeah, really. I mean, I have the luxury of working with this product, and I also have the luxury of have listened to this really great talks from both David and Petra. I thought David was talking about reinventing the roadmap because of new circumstances. I think it was the perfect bridge, because we did not reinvent the roadmap, but we took something in the roadmap that we would have never dream of doing before this COVID. And that's what I want to talk about today. I mean, how we seized an opportunity during this pandemic, and most specifically also like what we have learned while doing it, some lessons that could be good for us to take with us in the continuation of our work, even hopefully really soon without this COVID-19 pandemic. Before I do that, though, I want to introduce who is Hemnet and who am I. If you are a Swede or have been buying or selling a property in Sweden, chances are really high that you know what Hemnet is. Hemnet is the biggest property portal in Sweden. It's also the most property portal in the world. We are the place where you go to finding, buying or selling an apartment. We are top 5 most used apps in Sweden, and also like top 5 website because of users. So it's really a luxury to be able to work with such a popular brand. And I wrote here, I'm the most popular Italian. I should also add, I'm the only Italian working there, so that's why I'm the most popular. And I've been working with product for about 10 years. And what I really been with Hemnet for a little bit more than 1 year. And I work there as a chief product officer. We have 6 product team, and what I'm really passionate about is to enable product team to create amazing product. So this is a little bit about me, but with no further ado, I want to start talking about this story. And this story starts on Friday the 13th of March 2020. So it's Friday the 13th of a leap year in the middle of a pandemic, which could most likely be like the beginning of an horror story. But it was for me and for us at Hemnet a beginning of something that we're really proud of. It was the day basically when I had this crazy idea and talked with my team and said, okay, guys, we should do online open houses. And I mean, you have to put a little bit this into context. We had started to work from home, distributed for about 3 days. We had not ever had this feature in the roadmap. So there was no like planning, there was no research, there was no studies, there was no usability test, there was nothing. And you might think, okay, how the hell did that come to your head? And I mean, I'm from Italy, and especially I'm from Bergamo. Some of you might recognize the name of my city that became really famous in this pandemic. So basically, I had this sense of urge of doing something to help Sweden not to fall in the same pattern that Italy was living. And also Hemnet is really big. And I mean, with big power comes great responsibility. And I was really fortunate to have a company and a team that believe in the same thing. I felt that we had the responsibility of doing something to help the property market keep going, to make sure that we will not fall into an economic crisis, but also to give people the possibility to keep social distance. And this is like from this idea of us wanting to do something to actually help people in this crisis that everything started. And another really important date is Saturday, the 21st of March. So if you do a quick math, it's about 1 week or actually 8 days after the 13th of March. And that's when we were live with Hemnet Live. So we actually went from 0 to having a full running product in the hand of millions of people in Sweden in 8 days. And this is just a great achievement. And I mean, many of us just that worked on this started to think about, okay, how did we even do this? And I mean, how can we keep this success in everything else that we continue doing? And that is what I wanted to talk about the lessons that we learned. So lesson number 1, seize the opportunity when you see it. Many times, and I mean, I'm sure as a product person, product people out there behind those screens, you've been part of this conversation when you have an idea and someone in the room says, yeah, but we can build it. We can do better than this on that company that is offering this service. And yes, sometimes this is true, but also we should escape this trap of wanting to build everything ourselves. In our case, we were able to do this in 1 week because we found a great partner. And we didn't all of a sudden decide to become a broadcasting app. But we found someone that was really good at broadcasting, and we focused on our user experience, which was like presenting an open house. So in many times, I think it's important to think that what is a key for innovation is partnership, not build everything by yourself. Second lesson, and I think this is really dear to my heart, is that if you give people a biggest purpose, if you explain or if you can make this connection on how what you're working on is actually mattering, why is it connecting to something bigger? In this case was connecting to really something like our willingness to help out the market, but it can be something as an objective of an OKR, or something as like keeping cities less polluted, as David was talking about. If you do that, if you're able to make that connection, I can guarantee you that people will go the extra mile. And I've seen it with my eyes. People did not go 1 mile, they went 100 miles to make this happen, because we had this feeling that we wanted to contribute. Lesson number 3. This is like something that we always talk a lot as product persons, and this is about users. But I just want to say, I mean, there is no great product without great user experience. And I mean, in this case was really for us that when we started from zero, when we had nothing, we had just like my crazy idea. Then the very first thing we did is to sketch what we thought would be the best for the users. And in our case was like something that it was as close as possible as the actual open house. So possibility to smoothly go in, not having to download any other app than Hemnet, possibility to asking questions and like to have some kind of interaction with the broker. And I mean, if we hadn't do that, probably our product would have not been as good as it turned out to be. So really, always it seems like something that you do, but remind always yourself whenever you start something to start with the users. We can go to lesson number 4. This is my favorite. You know, I've been a product person for many years now, and especially if I think back when I started, one thing that we product manager like to do is to be in control. We want to be there, we want to be part of meeting, we want to give direction, we want to make sure that, you know, we are opinionated. Oh, yes, we are. And I mean, what I want to tell you is you have to dare to lose control. What I did in this case is that I set really clearly with the team what were the things that I didn't want to compromise with, that were basically connected with the user experience. Everything else I left to them. And I mean, this made it so that people actually took ownership, and also literally every time I came up with a question at some point of the day, they had already thought about it, and they even had gone 3 steps further. So I think, I mean, this is like, if there's something that it's difficult to learn or like to develop this muscle, but this is something that I think it's extremely important for all the PMs to try and dare to do it, because you're gonna see magic happening. Lesson number 5 then, which is also really connected to this, communication. I mean, as I said, when we started working on Hemnet Live, we also recently started to work remote. So in this, we were really lucky, because there were no 2 people like sitting in a room. There were like no conversation that were not visible to everyone. So we created an open challenge from the beginning. We threw in basically everyone that had something or had some question and was curious. And I mean, we also tracked back later on, and I mean, that channel had 10 times more the activities of all the other channels that we have in the company. So really, communication is key, which also brings me to the 6th lesson, that is, you need more competencies than the ones that are in product teams. Even if product teams are cross-functional, so you have a lot of really great brains, you need, as a product team, as a PM, you need to dare to trust your team. As a team, you need to dare to open up to your stakeholders. As I said, I mean, this was also like we were kind of forced to do this because we were building the product, sketching the contract, creating the pricing, doing the communication, all like in parallel. So it was kind of by design that we started to throw people in that Slack channel. But that also made it so that we ended up with a product, for example, that is bulletproof from a legal perspective. So this is something that I really encourage you to think about. Stakeholders shouldn't be just the last step of the funnel. You know, when you in your product team had already thought about a lot of solution and talk with user, and then in the end you're like, okay, what do you think about this, dear stakeholder? You need to actually dare to open up to them as early as possible. And I also guarantee you that the result of your product is going to be even better. And now we're going to lesson number 7. Fake until you make it. So, I mean, you know, even though we did partnerships, so we did not build everything ourselves, still having this feature out for millions of people, making it work from broker's perspective and customer perspective in 1 week. I mean, it would be impossible to have it like done 100% as like the final product. So what we did is we thought big, but started really small. And we created what it felt like an automated flow, but we had a lot of manual behind it. So I, for example, with our technical director and our UX director, we're sitting doing support and sending emails and fixing lead to brokers during the first 2 weeks of online open houses. And this is something that you should always take with you when you develop a product. That is like really seldom that is good to create the entire product in the first release. There's always something, even in your MVP, that you can do it manually. And while doing it, you're gonna learn a lot, and you're gonna make sure that when you actually put the time in automated it, you're automating the right things and in the right way. And that's really what happened to us. And now I'm coming to final lesson number 8. And this is really important because, you know, I've been talking about all the good things and how great this was. And I mean, it was really great. We're still talking about this internally. We're really proud of this. But this is literal footage of me for those 7 days. And this is really something that it was extremely intense. I wouldn't recommend to do this. I mean, don't try this at home. And also, I mean, what is like, if you think about it, what is getting even harder is like when you have a project like this, that is extremely successful, that everyone in the company talks about, that it becomes a really great success. Everyone starts to ask, okay, can we do this for everything, every product, every feature? And the answer you get from me is, oh my God, no, because it's really like, this was not a walk in the park. So I think we should, we at Hemnet, and also I hope you can take all the good lessons and then apply it in a really more sustainable way than like having basically this non-stop work for 8 days, which was still worth it, I would say. So this is what I had to say. Here you can find my email and my LinkedIn if you want to connect. I cannot see if there's any question, but I mean, either you type them now and I can answer, or I can also hang around a little bit later on so we can chat. Thank you so much.
Wow, a lot of wisdom there in a very few slides. Great presentation, Francesca.
Thank you.
But I'll start with the questions. I'm dying to know how's the response been to the from the market, from the users.
I mean, the users are really liking it, and actually, as I said, I think this is Hemnet Live is transforming. I mean, it was born as a result of the pandemic, right? For us trying, okay, we want still people to go to open houses, and they cannot get there physically. So what can we do? But in the long run, and how people are using it, is that they are using as an extra step to see if a property is actually interesting. We're seeing, for example, a lot of people, a lot of brokers using it for villas in Gotland, for example, where people are not able from Stockholm or wherever else in the country to travel there. So they will use online open houses to collect some interest in those properties. And then, of course, if you are interested, you will get to the physical open house. Even though, and this is really a fun fact for me, that I'm Italian, but maybe not for you Swedes, we had one person from Uppsala that actually put a bid just looking at the online open house, not even physically going to see the apartment.
Okay, really, really cool. So, I mean, this isn't just like a COVID one-time thing. You will keep this, and
we will. I mean, we really believe in it. We believe that in this way we can provide to home buyers extra content. We're actually planning on making it even more available. I don't want to reveal anything unless my product manager will kill me if I say any feature. But I mean, it will be more available soon.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, my biggest takeaway from your talk was the kind of like the connecting it to a mission statement, or I don't know why we don't do that more often. I just find it's easy when you have a crisis to rally around. I mean, but we can't seem to do it for like the mundane, ordinary, boring stuff we have. But yeah, it's a nice thing. Okay, so Emil had another question here. How did you sell this to the leadership? Because I guess there were like other things on the roadmap that you need to pause.
Okay, so this is like, you're gonna get a really weird answer because I'm part of the leadership, so I didn't have to sell it that much. I'm the one managing the roadmap, like at the end of the day. So that was easy. But of course, I mean, there was a selling it. I mean, that's also really important that, I mean, as a company, I mean, there was like, this is culture of the company, right? Everyone was really willing. That's what we could do to help. And that was the main driver, and no one questioned it. Also, of course, I mean, we did not completely pause anything, but of course we relocated capacity, which means that we made some other project go slower. But I mean, as I said, that was not an issue because everyone was behind me, supporting this as our way of supporting the market.
Okay. Great. Great. So was I guess like I mean, this idea, you must have talked about it before, right? It's been on some backlog somewhere, but never prioritized, or?
Actually, no. I mean, not. I mean, I don't want to say no because I mean, not at my time at Hemnet, so not for 1.5 years at least.
Not for okay, right? Gotcha. But do you expect this to be the like the new normal, or do you think everything will go back to physical showings?
I mean, I don't think. I mean, this is really my belief. Time will tell. But I don't think that digital would replace physical. I mean, buying a property is such an intense and emotional process that, I mean, the majority of people want to go there. And it's also a lot about like the feeling you get when you get in an apartment, or like, can I see myself living here? So, I mean, I don't think that digital will replace physical, but I think that digital will become a really good complement to physical. So I really believe that it's gonna create some great value for buyers. Yeah,
and great. And I guess the kind of the realtor business needs some digital transformation as well. So it was about time, tying it back to what Petra said about Swedbank going through 3 years of digital transformation in 3 months. So
yeah, I mean, I must say that, I mean, we cannot have digital open houses without realtors, so they were with us. So I mean, they were quick as well in adapting to the all new situation. So that's really great.
Great. So thanks for the talk, Francesca. Really, really insightful.
Thank you, and I'll be sticking around if there's any other question at the end.
Great. Then we'll remove you from stage. Poof. And then it's time for our last speaker. Erel, welcome on stage.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. Great being here this evening.
Great. And you're still at the office, not at the warehouse? Yes. Oh, I thought you would be. I thought you would be at the warehouse. I'm a MatHem customer, and I have trouble finding open slots. So I imagine you have a ton of work to do.
Yeah, we do, and I hope you have a better service now.
All right. Yeah, this is going to be really, really, really interesting. So do you have a screen to share?
Yes.
Let's see.
First, show the screen here. And do you see it? Let's see.
Yes. Wait a second. I'll put it online. There we are. Now you just need to.
Yeah. Go to present. Bam.
And there you go. And I'll remove myself, and YouTube is all yours.
Okay. So just a couple of words about me. My name is Erel Sherman. I'm the Chief Product Officer at MatHem. I'm ex-Googler. I was the VP Product of Waze in Tel Aviv. And ex-Spotify was until 4 or 5 months ago the Senior Director of Product in Spotify. That's my last 2 jobs. And if anyone is interested, we can talk later. I'll give some background on our industry, and we start from there, talking about like growth in growth driven by product in Corona days. So if you look on grocery shopping, maybe some of you or most of you don't know, it's a huge industry. It's the second biggest household expense after housing, and it's good that Hemnet was before us. If you look on annual market side in Sweden alone, it's bigger than $30 billion a year. If you compare it to global music industry, and for Sweden, like talking about Spotify is interested, this is only like 19 billion like globally. So like it's a totally different like numbers. I always like to look on like industries moving or transitioning between offline and online. And I've done my own several journeys there. Online grocery is one of the next industries shifting from offline to online first, because at the end of the day, you do sell real goods and not no one eats the app. Within it, it's already big as an industry, but overall it's an early adoption market still. So if you just compare like e-commerce and look on Amazon and others, still today, like 20 years afterwards, like only like 25% of e-commerce shopping is being done online. It's a super huge industry. So very big already, but early days as an industry. As industries that moving from offline to online, we go through similar growth patterns as other industries. You can think about Google with search, with e-commerce of eBay and Amazon, advertising, movies, Netflix, music, Spotify, payments, PayPal, Klarna, IZ, whatever, financing, fintech, banking, etc. I can go on and on and on. And especially we are similar to those industries that also provide at the end like a tangible product that you actually need to hold and feel, not necessarily eat it, but feel it. Just a little, because in product, we at the end of the day we have a lot of like data, and we need to be analytics. We also need to understand people, and we need to think on the psychology around it. And what I find like interesting, and then this will also connect us to Corona, is that for me, before joining MatHem, what I found interesting is when thinking about the theory of hierarchy of needs of Maslow. I'm sure all of you know it and used it and talked about it like a few times in your life. What I find interesting in grocery, generally speaking, is that it applies to both the basic needs. We simply need to eat, to live. But it also applies to self-fulfillment needs. There are a lot of emotions when it comes to food, a lot of fantasy, desires. What will I cook tonight to my wife and kids, to my spouse, to my girlfriend, my boyfriend, friends, whatever. How do I want to cook? What type of food I want to have in my fridge? We socialize around food. So it goes into those two extreme. What COVID-19 did is emphasizing the essence of humane basic needs, because on a day-to-day you actually don't really think about it, right? You feel that food will always be there, and the shop or MatHem or whatever, it will always be there. And suddenly, most of us, me included, I don't know about all of you, we don't have a farm next to our home. We don't grow vegetables. We don't have a farm of cows. And if the supply chain stops working, we are doomed. So it brought, I think it brought a lot of anxiety to the table, because no one actually knew like where it will go. And then what we saw from the other side of it, so when voice scooters stopped riding across the cities, those same people started like trying online grocery shopping and others. So we saw the opposite impact of the corona. We measure unmet demand, which is an extremely important measurement for us to understand what's actually happening behind the scenes. So we saw in March a 3 to 5x higher demand than supply. Obviously, those are proxies, but you can imagine that there are steps in the funnel that if people don't get there. So, for example, if you cannot find the delivery slots for the next 2 days, then probably you churn because of that. It's a bit more complicated than this, but in a nutshell, that's that. And in other words, it suggested that our industry can shift from early adoption market to mass market in a very short time. And with this, you can argue, or we don't really know, right, what will happen after the corona, what industry will grow, what will come back to what they were before, what post-traumas people will have, what new things will happen. There are some that we can imagine, and that's we can talk on another talk. But if you think on online grocery, it's like there's no like new technology out there. It's just new habits to be formed. And we have our own magic number, and what we see when people are purchasing 4 times, they are most likely will return. So the corona in a way made sure that people will try 4 times. So with this, we saw like we started seeing where it can go. On the other end, supply actually went to the other direction. So if probably not in the details, but the industry across Sweden and across the globe was struggling to meet demand. And again, it's not like a pure online player. You don't just add servers to enable a higher capacity. You need other warehouses. You need more employees. You need more cars. You need more drivers. Like it takes its time. And obviously we've done that, and obviously all the other players have done this. But the other thing that we saw is that the supply increase was slower than demand increase. So we were ramping up, but slower than demand ramping up. So the gaps actually accelerated. Again, across the globe, companies started having 7 to 14 days lead time to delivery, and it was increasing by the day. We saw like about every day or 2 days, another day of waiting was added. And we started talking about the problem when we were 3 days in advance, earliest order. The way I like to talk about it is that we started seeing a new behavior of anxiety-driven shopping. probably all of you or most of us like started doing it to an extent. I don't know if you have like stocks of toilet paper and rice in your storage or under the bed, but people started buying this way. And the fact that you cannot order for tomorrow like you would normally want to do just added to the anxiety. Like the world is collapsing, what's going to happen? Will borders close and I will not be able to buy stuff? But on another angle, I saw actually MatHem and our industry moving from being a grocery business to being an insurance business. That people like started placing an order for unknown 9 days into the future, and then run into a physical store next to them, and coming 8 days later, they would have they decided whether they need this insurance and go for it, or whether they are already happy with what they need. So in a way, it became a non-sustainable business. So the fact that demand is growing doesn't mean that you are on the right track. It actually present both opportunities and risk. We also started seeing cancellation rates growing, which is understandable because again, if you order for 9 days in advance, you don't really know what you will need in 9 days. This is not the way most of us think and operate. So the insight that we saw here was that we have both huge opportunity and a huge risk, and it's an either or at the end. From our perspective, the way we started looking at the product is that the race for leadership has started, and there is advantage for fast movers, and risk of slow movers will be to lose ground post-corona with more and more disappointed users. And again, MatHem is the largest online grocery player in Sweden, and we want to keep this position, and we want to serve our users and let them feel like secure and safe, and that they can get what they need. Now, none of us lived in a global crisis. Like the last time that there was this amount of global crisis was World War II, and I didn't live there at that time, at least. And as a society, like it's difficult to compare to something you can relate to. The one thing we can relate to that for me was the closest, if any of you were ever in an hyper growth company or industry, in this sense it's similar. It's like the competition is on land grabbing, everything is changing every day. You cannot not look on a KPI for a week and hope for good. You need to see what competitors are doing. So it's a very hectic timing. And this is actually a good anchor to relate to, because there are ways that you work in when you are in a hyper growth. Be paranoid is one of those. So if I'm looking on approaches across the globe, so all companies made tremendous efforts to increase supply. Some did it faster, some did it better or worse. Amazon recruited 100,000 employees in their warehouses. Instacart, which is the biggest online grocery in the States, they recruited 300,000 people. And everywhere, people just recruited for warehouses and the delivery fleets. Leading companies like Amazon that we all know, and Ocado, which is the biggest online grocery player in the UK, they decided to close the gates to new customers. They're serving their own customers better. And with time coming late April, delivery lead time slowly decreased, somewhat due to supply increase, but to be honest, mostly due to demand slowing down mid-April. Sun came out, people start feeling that somewhat the worst is behind us, and people started acting a bit differently. Still, still way higher demand, but coming a little bit back to normal. That's what we saw happening across the globe. We decided to take a different approach and not to be biased by what we see that others are doing, and actually try to find like a better approach. First, we did not close the gate to new customers, and for me, I can tell you that what led me were two main reasons. One is a pure ethical reason. The way I see it, closing the gates presented a new definition of rich and poor. At the time that people, sorry for the typo, at the time that people are looking for a safe harbor, so you can imagine people are knocking at our gates and we just say, sorry, you're out of the gates. And the reason to be rich is that you are a tech savvy or early adapters, and the reason to be poor is that you are a little bit slow mover. And the second one is just pure growth perspective. Getting new audiences that are not early adopters is actually the key for sustainable growth. The second, and this was in a way a very controversial approach. At the end, it's a simple, I'll tell you in a minute, it's a simple decision, but very controversial, and actually no one, at least that I know, did it. We did not wait. We did not wait for delivery lead time to sort itself out. We did not. We didn't want to just wait to supply growing while slowly reducing the lead time from 10 days to 9 days to 8 days to 7 days, etc. So, we've set a clear goal to ourselves. We want to be proactive and we want to shift the behavior back to everyday online grocery shopping, full stop. We want to make most users happy while better serve users who practically cannot rely on us for habitual grocery shopping. And within this, I think that one of the things that is always important, but sometimes it's like really, really in your face, that there are always trade-offs in life. And until we increase supply and until we find like better solution, we cannot serve all. And just saying, yes, we do serve all, but you can order to 10 days and the one after you can order for 15 days in advance, for me, it's actually serving no one. And the third goal was to drive sustainable growth. So the solution that we took was to enable users to place orders only 2 days in advance. At the end of the day, very, very simple technical change. And the trade-off was between offering a value proposition to most users or to big percentage of users versus flexibility. In ordinary days, no one will, no product manager that is sane will reduce this flexibility because there are enough users that want to order 4 days in advance or 7 days in advance or for next month. But 95% of the users want to order for today or tomorrow or 2 days, and not more than that. Doing so, we enabled big percentage of people, not just our users, just people, to fulfill their basic need instead of 0% of users. Again, while knowing that some users will not be able to place an order that day. We opened the delivery slots every day at noon for 2 days in advance. So people, if they were open for today or tomorrow or 2 days, they could have placed an order. But if everything is full, we just encourage users to prepare their cart, even if a slot is not available. And we proactively communicated prior to opening, like a full day of delivery slots to all users with open cart from the previous days and sometimes from the same day previous week. And a key was to collaborate with supply chain as they increased capacity. From rollout mitigation, the main challenge was that, so again, we started talking about that we need to be proactive when people could have placed order only 3 days in advance. About 2 weeks later, but then 10 days, the first delivery slot, we were ready to launch, meaning that we have 9 days of transition that potentially the store is closed, like no one can order. So the way to mitigate it is that we timed the release or the transition window with production or operation overall being ready to increase capacity to some extent, which enable us to have the store open every day for a short while, and a short while was seconds to minutes, that people just stayed online with ready cards, waiting to click purchase. But this helped us to both transition, have the store open, and learn and see what problems we have as we ramp up. And at the end of the day, how did it go? We knew from the beginning what we want to measure, and this is how it worked. So we measure ENPS for our customers. We saw a 25% increase in user satisfaction. Cancellation rates went down to 1%. They were more than 7% before we started. Week 1 retention grew in 160%. And again, to those of you even being in hyper growth companies, that's a number you rarely see. And generally speaking, we grew about 2x in at the end of the day in a few weeks. We're still growing, but that's the current pace. Most of the growth came from new audiences coming in with way better retention than previous ones. And yeah, that's it. I also wrote an article on LinkedIn about this story if anyone wants to read. I don't know if we'll share these slides, but then if yes, then the link is here. That's it.
Wow, great work. All right, let's invite the rest of the speakers up on stage here, Francesca and David. Now you're on YouTube. Sorry. Yeah. So really interesting talk. Talk I've been dying to hear since. I mean, full confession. I've been mostly a ICA user, but exactly those points that you brought up with the hoarding and everything that's been driven me to MatHem now. So I'm a happy customer there, and it's kind of interesting to see because you were the only grocery delivery player in Sweden, right, that had this strategy, right?
Yeah, not only in Sweden. I didn't see anyone taking this strategy.
Okay, it seems as, I mean, based on your numbers and everything, it seems like a success. Have you heard anything from the other players? I mean, if they've had the reverse.
I didn't hear directly. What we see is that others have grew and at some point started releasing or opening to new customers, and that waiting the lead time started dropping. But very, very, very slowly. So in a way, the way I see it, a non-valid value proposition for too long.
Interesting. So, as David mentioned in his talk, I mean, they saw some new user groups signing up. He had a story about super old people that didn't know how to what kick the bike meant. Have you seen similar? Yeah. so I mean, I guess based on from my line of work in e-commerce, I mean, we've seen a huge increase in especially the older demographic that we needed to educate in how do you shop online. Have you seen similar?
Yeah, so first, not all of it we still know. We're obviously learning as we go. So one thing we saw already from the numbers that the audiences coming in were different in their retention behavior, like across the board. And you talked about more older people. The proportion of 70 plus people grew tremendously. So obviously the biggest or close to biggest audience, but proportionally they grew the fastest than any other group. Which again, for me, this also strengthened the belief that it's sometimes the opportunity to shift an industry you need to create an habit, and create an habit is just let them try it enough time, and if 70 plus old people just tried it, and because again reality forced them, then they stayed. So this group was accelerated. We also released a little bit while ago also priority lanes, also to 70 plus. So if they so we give a bandwidth to elderly people to ease their anxiety, to enable them to order for longer and keep it for them, and if they don't use it for enough hours, then we release it to everyone. But yeah, this is one of the, so those are the two I can say differences that we already see.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, so really impressive talks. And what really strikes me when hearing you guys talk is I get reminded of the old Churchill quote about never letting a good crisis go to waste. You've done, a lot of good work in a very short time because of this. And what really struck me also was the kind of comparison between MatHem and Voi. One I've seen demand peak, the other one I've seen it really just slope down. But also as you said, Erel, you've been in kind of a hyper growth situation with a lot of land grabbing, and which must have been Voi's journey.
Sure.
I know a year ago.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you have any tips for Erel, David? And when you were in that phase.
I don't think he needs a lot of tips from me. He's been through this before. But one of the things when you go through hypergrowth is you tend to grow the organization very rapidly as well, and you tend to skip processes just in order to get things out faster. And just like I was talking about as well, we had the time now to go back to the basics and figure out, okay, what didn't do properly when we were growing so fast. But when I hear Erel talking about that, they already put the metrics in to measure the success when they grow so fast. You can't get much tips from me either in that case.
By the way, one learning that I see as important is that throughout again, probably all of us, not probably all of us, we having a lot of product experience. Sometimes there are those do's and don'ts that they become like a Bible in a sense, but those needs to be challenged, and the only thing that is not being challenged is to ask the one question: what is the real user needs? And that's the only thing that doesn't change. And then and the second one is how do you measure success? But a lot of best practices, etc. They don't necessarily apply. They need to be challenged.
Yeah, great. So another discussion topic that has been widely debated the last couple of weeks has been the kind of remote working, remote policy. We've heard about Twitter and Facebook and Square and everybody allowing people to. It works so good for them. Have you seen any? I guess most of you working from home or are beginning to transition back to the office, but has similar discussions been going on at your companies, or how does it work to run a product team from remote?
Well, I can start. I was touching upon it as well. So it was a lot of, we went through this where we lay off people and people got demotivated. So you have to get them motivated. I think also, given my past history as well, I mean, I'm used to work remote, so it wasn't a big change for me to work remote. And on the contrary, I excel and like that kind of working behavior. What you miss is like the dynamics of like social dynamics and overhearing conversations that you should hear but you don't know about. So facilitating those is actually difficult. But once you're getting into that, I mean, at Voi, we're going to develop what we call the Voi hubs now, where we're not necessarily going to go back to a traditional physical office where we're going to have our seat and sit there for forever. It's more like, okay, we're going to allow people to work from home if they want to, but also have the space to come in and work when they feel that they need to have the physical presence of working together. So we're contracting from traditional office behavior to more like a mix of having offices and working remotely. And I think the good thing with that is going to be easier for us to address and attract talents as well. We don't necessarily have to have them in Stockholm now. So if we find the right people in London or in Ukraine or something, we have a better means to facilitate those kind of things now.
I mean, I agree. I mean, from my perspective, I really agree. I think that, I mean, this, if there's something that this pandemic has accelerated, is how everyone looks at remote working or distributed working, as is better said. From my perspective, I think that during this couple of months that we've been all working distributed, it's been in a way easier because everyone was on the same condition. So everyone, even like I see some of you guys that are like actually in the office, but I guess you're doing like meeting remotely anyway. So everyone has the same kind of prerequisites. I think that it, for us, has been working really well. But from my perspective, I guess like some other CPO or product manager can relate, is it extremely time and energy consuming. So having all these meetings online, have all this workshop facilitation, it's not, I mean, at least in the beginning for me, it was a bit of a challenge because I tried to keep exactly the same schedule that I had physically, but put it on a remote. And that's, at least from my perspective, was really hard.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where exactly it will land, but I'm sure it will change the balance and enable more distributed working. Again, I agree with Francesca about this. It's easier when everyone is like this, and B, when companies that didn't try it before try it and see that nothing bad happens. Then it will go this way. I don't think like that full remote. It will go to full distributed. There's always something about like being in the same room, but I believe it will be mixed. And as David said, I think that there will be more openness to have people that don't even live in your country and will come once in few months. How exactly it will end, we will see. But I'm quite positive it will be some kind of an accepted mix. And also people will need to learn how to do it. At least for me, I can say that I mostly work from office throughout the entire time, but we gave the employees the choice. So most people are not here, except obviously the warehouses that we need them to pick and drive. But just from a personal level, for me, at the beginning, it was difficult to put the line where is work and where is home. I guess David said he's doing it for more time. I guess he's better than me. But this will be an adjustment that people, and I think this time, like we enabled users the time to get used to something, we gave society time to find the right balance and live in those two worlds. So it will be interesting to see how it goes.
Okay. Great. We're nearing the 1.5 hour mark, so we'll start rounding this off. I guess we could do one last fire round of questions here. If we just go around, what will you guys? What have you guys learned? What's the one thing you guys learned from this crisis? If we start with you, David, one takeaway. The
importance of being led by vision and have metrics and goals to work towards, because it makes your decision making fairly easy to do in that case.
Great. You Francesca?
I mean, I can just plus one what David just said. And also, I think that one general thing that we can learn is like change can open up a lot of opportunities. I mean, remote distributed working, or like having the possibility of talking with customers, like customers interview all over Sweden or even the world, working with partners, also like this asynchronous communication that creates better dialogues. There's a lot of new opportunities in change.
Cool. And you're
So one of them I said, it's from product-wise, is asking the single question of what are the user needs and what's the value proposition that we want to give in an high level, and then dive from there, and within it then challenge the status quo of everything. And from a company perspective, again, it's an obvious one, but I think that when you have a purpose and a clear vision, and you can get across the company the different teams aligned and passionate about it, things that seem to be impossible a day before are suddenly possible.
Great. Thanks you very much, guys, for taking the time to talk with the product world today. And just for everybody on the feed that's listening, at the fun doesn't need to stop now. We have I think it's around like 20 more product meetups going on during the evening if you're in Stockholm. So I think Marty Kagan will start his speech soon in the Bristol ProductTank. So you can just go to worldproductday.com and you can see every talk there. There will be John Cutler and Melissa Perry and Gibson Biddle, and yeah, there's a lot of people speaking tonight. So if you have some free time and looking for more product inspiration, please take the time to look there. But thanks to our speakers.
Thank you.
Take your time.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.